What's going on, everybody? Lloyd Jones with Midnight Comics here, and welcome to another episode of Indie Breakdown. We break down all of your favorite indie comic book characters for an eventual indie versus battle. Today we have an awesome guest. Let me introduce himself really quick. Go ahead, brother.
Okay. Thanks for having me, by the way. And so I'm Ronnie Martin, or aka Ronnie Creates. I'm the founder of Radical Comics, and I'm here to talk to you guys about a few of my characters, specifically my character Allstar, because I came out with this graphic novel earlier this year, and just here to chat it up.
Okay, so let's dive right in. Who is Allstar?
So Allstar's real name is John Birmingham. He is a retired Marine, as well as a father and husband. But essentially, he and his son, they were playing baseball in the front yard. They have a really great relationship, as they both have a love for baseball. And tragedy struck. In most cases, like with superhero stories, there's some sort of tragedy that leads the hero on their path of becoming that version of themselves. But essentially, his son was killed by a police officer. And initially, when developing this story, I wrote this story in 2020, and it was during the height of the George Floyd protests and the George Floyd incident. And so a lot of that, it was coming from a place of wanting to vent out my frustrations, but also my love for superheroes and my appreciation for social justice. I was born and raised here in Montgomery, Alabama, so that's kind of it's in my DNA, so to speak. So I kind of just I felt like social justice and superheroes kind of would mesh well. And so that being said, the George Floyd incident when I was in high school, it made me want to write a superhero that would deal with certain situations as far as like injustices and stuff like that. So the main character, his son is killed by a police officer, and the main character, he wants justice for his son being killed, and he's a man of faith, and so he actually prays to God for some sort of justice, not knowing that he will be granted superpowers. And so there is actually this I posted it on my Instagram, so I can talk about it. But there's actually this celestial being that was created by the creator of our universe, and she is her name is the Light Keeper, but Gletty the Light Keeper. But she essentially is a being that was made out of light, but she can actually manipulate the fabric of stars, and so she actually crafted this crystal, and she heard John's cry for help. She heard John's prayer, and she felt like he would be the perfect choice to have this power. And so she sent it to him, and he didn't know, what the power was. He didn't even know that he had powers the day that the crystal bonded itself to him. But there was a protest in the name of his son the next day. And so during that protest, that's when his powers activated. There was actually a riot that ensued. Police officers and protesters, and a lot of this stuff, I looked at reality and I mirrored reality. Like, there was a lot of peaceful protests that were that went violent because either police they have rubber bullets, but they're supposed to shoot the rubber bullets at the floor, and it ricochets and hits people. It's not, but in real life, they're actually shooting rubber bullets directly in their eyes and just everywhere. And so I ended up putting that in the book, and that was the thing that made him go into the crowd and try to help people. He sees people, and he doesn't want the same thing that happened to his kid to happen to anybody else, and that's the whole reason why he was there. And so he's getting people to safety. They're shooting tear gas, and he hears this guy screaming. And while he's in the midst of the tear gas, nobody can see him. That's when his powers activate. And so it's like, it's thick clouds of tear gas, and he's able to transition into a superhero form. And he's like, where did this come from? Where did this power? And he thought back the previous night when the crystal landed into his backyard. And so then that's when he decides to use his powers to help the protesters that are being hurt. And then he comes face to face with the police officers, and it's kind of like a showdown situation where they're like, put your hands up, put your hands where we can see them. And he's like, you think it's okay to, hurt these innocent protesters? And then it becomes him defending himself, and now he has to deal with, a few officers and different things like that. And it's
very layered. Because like I'm thinking about the colors. He's missing a leg too, right?
Yeah. Okay.
Like a prosthetic leg, right?
Yeah. So he's also a disabled Marine as well. So he actually lost his leg during infantry. But I'm glad you said that, because I feel like I'm all over the place right now.
No, you're good.
Yeah.
Because all this, like even going into stuff like a versus match and stuff, like when we do that, I like to take the characters as they are in universe, right? I don't,
right.
Oh, bloodlusted this. No. What is Allstar? How is he normally, right? And again, it's very layered. You talk about he's out. He fought for his country, former military, right? He comes back, suffers this injustice, and I'm even thinking about the colors that you chose for the fit. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just it's obviously these things weigh on him. Because I don't think the crystal decided red, white, and blue for the fit, right? Like this is something that, well, I'm assuming anyway, it's something almost of his own manifestation.
So essentially, yeah. So I guess essentially the being that that was created by the creator of the universe, she dons a red and blue uniform, and so she kind of gave it to him. So it's kind of like by coincidence, like with Superman, he has the red, he has the S, and they're like, oh, it's an S, but it's really a symbol. It's kind of like that situation.
Okay.
But there is a reason why I gave him the red and blue, because of the history of like black men in this country, and him serving and being a a man that was in that fought for his country as well. I just feel like that relationship between African American men and America is a interesting dynamic. And I also feel like I feel like he represents Black Americans in that way, like he's like a manifestation of the Black Americans that are tired of the injustices that happen. And you have this diaspora of Black people, but it's like the ones here in America, there are certain people that are just like just tired of it, and so he represents that. He's that manifestation of that, and so he's this the colors and who he is as a character is like self-identifying with that idea, and so I kind of took that and ran with it. And then also as far as like my favorite superheroes, like Captain America, Superman, Spider-Man, and initially he wasn't even red and blue. He was like purple and green. And then but like I kept hearing people say, oh, he kind of looks like a villain. And I was like, you know what, maybe I will switch up his colors. And there was this weird feeling where it was like, it doesn't feel right to use red and blue. But I was like, these characters, there's so many popular characters that wear red and blue, and it's like they don't own the colors.
They don't.
So I just went ahead and I did it. And I feel like it was one of the best decisions I could have done, because like it just
the iconic look.
Yeah, exactly. But
so you brought up, of course, the powers a little while ago. What all can he do? And one of the things that kind of popped up, of course, you'll dive into the powers in a second, but he initially anyway fighting during that protest and helping people out and stuff like that. Is there a level of restraint that he has to learn, or is he did the powers manifest and he's able to control them, or is there almost a this is two-layered question. I'm sorry. We'll start with the powers, and then I'll ask about that. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay. So essentially, in the book, he actually has a moment where he grabs one of the officers and tosses them, not knowing how the extent of like his strength. So But he, in the situation, he's not trying to. Once he figures out that he has super strength, he's going out of his way. He does throw a punch, but he's not trying to be brutal with them. He's not trying to like harm them. His whole situation was like to defend himself. And so he that's the whole situation with that. But as far as powers, his powers come from this crystal that was crafted from a star. And so the crystal has this connection to all of the stars in the universe. And I haven't really touched on all of that, but I'm elaborating on it in here. But the crystal actually, that's also why his name is Allstar. One of the reasons why his name is Allstar. All of the stars in the universe, he has a connection to the stars. And then with his son dying, his son's nickname that he gave his son was All-Star because,
Baseball.
he wanted to be an all-star baseball player. And so it's like this full connection, not knowing that, he would get these powers and then have this connection to the stars. And so with that being said, when stars go supernova, they emit a huge amount of energy, possibly even more powerful than nuclear bombs. And if he has connections to just about all of the stars in space, who's to say how much energy he can put out?
That's an infinite number right there.
Yeah. And so there's actually a part in the book where he does go supernova, but it's more so of a controlled blast. And he's not, letting all of it out of him, but it's like more or less like a controlled situation.
This doesn't hurt him in any kind of capacity at all either, right? Like, because he's still human essentially as well.
So the thing with that, he's, I guess you could say, a supercharged human. So I did a lot of research in terms of like, the connection between stars and man. Scientists say that human beings possess the same elements within them as stars. And so once he gets the crystal, it's like all of the elements that are already inside of his human body are, increase exponentially. So it's like, it's kind of like
the potential was already there.
Yeah, the potential was already there, but just increased. And so whenever he emits, or explodes with that supernova energy, it's more or less kind of like, he might not be as strong, or he might be like, a little weakened, and he can always go to space to recharge. But that energy is constantly flowing through him. That the crystal is kind of like a conduit for the other stars, and so it's like just constantly flowing through him that way.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's kind of like the gist of his powers and super strength,
flight, concussive blast, almost.
Yeah, supernova, concussive energy blasts. The way that he flies, he's not just flying. With Superman, they just For me, I don't really remember like the gist of like how Superman flies, but for All-Star, he actually manipulates his gravitational field.
I like that.
And then with the cosmic energy and the cosmic aura of the crystal, it kind of propels him like a shooting star in a way. And so, there's different, shooting stars travel at different speeds. So it's not like it's a
constant.
Like this is how fast a shooting star goes. I mean, they can go, there's different speeds that they can travel. So it's like, he's like a living star in a way.
Okay. Now, when he's utilizing these, energies, right? You brought up the fact when he does like the supernova thing, it's kind of contained, right? But is it like contained to the point where, like, obviously he's not destroying himself, but like, what are kind of the effects, I guess, on his surroundings when letting off that kind of energy? I only asked this specific question because I have a character named Soul, and he, he's got a Mon and Ra within him, so he can control properties of the sun. But like, when he takes too much in, and like, you usually only see him flying when he's doing this, because when he's walking, like the stuff is melting around him because the heat is still emitting off of him. So I'm curious to know what route you took. Just curious with the supernova and stuff.
So with the controlled, I also have a copy of the book too, so I can show a few pages.
Okay.
But with the controlled explosion, it was like more of like a concussive blast. It didn't really for this explosion, it didn't really it did emit like some level of heat. You know, like the officers, they were hit by the explosion in their armor and stuff like that. It was like smoking, and they were just like laying on the ground, and then there was a crater where he was standing. So it did some sort of effect, but that's not the full extent of the supernova blast.
Okay.
Um,
Oh, we just haven't seen it. I got you.
yeah, exactly. So it's like, you
So
know,
does he get trained then? Like, or does by the one that gave him the crystal, or is it kind of like a what's the word? Or is she giving him or helping him like almost in a symbiote type way where she could speak to him through the crystal and like
mhm.
help him on utilizing his powers that way, or has that
So
his
the
knowledge
way
of it?
Okay, so the way that she is, she's more or less kind of like a Madam Web sort of figure. So she can always
Oh,
like take him into like another dimension and talk to him and stuff like that.
okay.
But essentially, she can, you know, she when once he gets his powers, she was gonna explain to him like, you know, how his powers work, the gist of it. But more or less, he once he uses them, he's kind of like learning. Uh, he's just learning as he goes.
Okay.
That's kind of the situation. But she kind of pops in and out a few times, you know, throughout his journey. He's like, you know, where have you been? You know, but it's kind of like she's there, she's watching, but she doesn't really interfere with I guess the squabbles and the things of man, even though she kind of interfered with giving him the powers. But it's for a larger purpose. It's not just for him being Earth's champion, but essentially him being kind of like the protector of the universe at some point.
So okay. So I did see a character Amalgus, like
Mm-hmm.
power scaling wise,
Mm-hmm.
right? How are we looking at well, All-Star versus Amalgus first off, but like if
Mm-hmm.
we were to compare this level of threat to anybody mainstream, just to give an idea of the caliber that we're dealing with here.
Mm-hmm.
Where's Amalgus, and then where is All-Star in comparison?
So I would say Amalgus, you know, he could destroy worlds, and he has like an alien armada and different things like that. And you know, his whole thing is stripping planets of their resources. He was he's he's fabled to be the harbinger of death in his culture, and so he's like that guy, you know, like he was, you know, born and bred to be a warrior at a young age. And so I guess I would compare him to in the mainstream would probably be like a dark side figure, like along those
Okay.
lines. Um, he he just wants power. Like, I mean, he's just a bad, you know, guy. Like, and then I feel like for a villain, I didn't want to. I feel like nowadays, you know, it's like there's always, and not to knock villains that have a reason to being a villain,
Mm-hmm.
but I think I just really wanted to have like a bad villain just for the sake of being bad.
Finally, somebody else. Because yes, the
Yeah.
sympathetic villain, cool, but
Hmm.
I miss villains being villains for the sake of being villains.
Exactly. And so that's kind of where I went with Amalgus. And you know, he also has this knowledge of the crystal, and you know, he kind of wants to get his hands on the crystal as well, because if he gets his hands on it, then he has unlimited
Unstoppable.
power
Yeah.
in terms of the stars, the connection to the stars. But power scaling wise, with All Star, I would compare him to his first year would probably be like a early DCAU Superman. Like, you know,
Okay.
he doesn't know the full extent of his powers, so he's like, and the more that he uses powers, the stronger he gets. So I'd say, like, you know, he might have a connection to a few of the stars, but the more that he uses his powers, his connection branches out
Gross.
to to more stars, and the older he gets, the more powerful he gets. So that's kind of his thing. But
Okay. No, I like this. So, okay. So when you say, of course, he's going to be using his power stuff more, what is kind of the normal threat we're going to see him going against, right?
mm,
For him to gain this, right? Because of course, well, as far as we know, on Earth, we're just
mm.
regular folks here. So, what's going to take him to those higher echelons of combat, if you would?
Oh man, I have so many characters that not only test his physical but also his mental. Um, there's another character that I'm working on, another villain, who's kind of like his opposite in a way in terms of power. You know, there's this character. his name is Dark Star, but he's
Mm.
actually his Dark Star's origins is he's a scientist who's manipulating with he's kind of messing around with this dark matter energy, and he has this machine and stuff like that. And him and his wife, they're working on this. They're both scientists. The machine goes wrong. All Star's there to kind of save them, kind of like a Doc Ock situation with Spider-Man 2, and she gets killed and he gets exposure for the dark matter, but also being in contact with All Star, the both energies. Yeah, and so like with that dark matter energy fused with All Star's powers, he kind of has like this. He's kind of he goes insane in a way, and he blames All Star for the death of his wife, and so uh, that also deals with All Star's weakness, and so he's actually All Star is actually affected by that energy, and it can hurt him. So, yeah.
Dang. So he accidentally gave himself a weakness helping these folks
Yeah,
out.
exactly. And yeah, I have old design and stuff for Dark Star. I could share some stuff with you maybe after. But
Okay.
and then I also have this other character who's just like a madman. He's actually human, but his name is Nihilus. And so basically Nihilus's whole situation is that he was actually a soldier as well, but he was kind of disregarded and stuff like that as a veteran, and all of his friends were killed. But he's like, I'd say I compare him to like Punisher in terms of like the way that he acts, but also like maybe like Punisher mixed with Joker. And so
Dang. Okay.
yeah, and so he actually there's actually this thing that I wrote up where um, Nihilus goes into a police precinct and like bombs it, but like he's just like he leaves like clues and stuff where wherever he goes, whenever he kills people, but he kills criminals, but it's like All Star doesn't kill, and so it's like you know All Star has to deal with this guy who's not only killing people but just kills people for the sake of killing people, and he also has this bomb vest on too. It's like, how do you deal with a guy who's running around with a bomb vest? uh you got to
You
think
got some
smart.
heavy characters, boy.
Yeah. So Nihilus is just once you see Nihilus in Dark Star, you'll kind of get I guess it'll kind of help with imagining like who they are. But so it's Malgus, Nihilus, Dark Star. I also have some other alien characters from different planets that also know about the crystal that kind of come and invade
So it
Earth
ain't
as
no
well.
secret then. It ain't no real secret about.
Yeah, it's not a secret. And the thing with Amalgus is he's always been searching for these crystals and the power. He just couldn't catch the Lightkeeper. He couldn't catch Glutty because she actually travels through stars by way of like portals. She can actually like travel like through stars, and that's actually another power that I was considering for All Star. Him having the ability to travel through stars, and I was talking to another creator, and I was like, maybe that could be a way for him to go to different universes. So
Okay.
that's yeah.
I'm feeling this. Yeah, I didn't realize like you'll see people like actually like draw stuff out for their characters and then fighting these other characters, but like you actually have a feasible reason as to why he's so strong and made it make sense instead of he's the guy because he's the guy. You got to be like to connect to every star in the universe and beyond. Yeah, that's an unlimited amount of power and then also including the fact that it's going to take experience on his part, not only like consistently using it, but just the experience that comes with age, right? So does he have a longevity of life because he's connected to all the stars in the universe and stuff like that? Is that
I would
spoiler
say
territory?
I would say yes, because it's like I would say the stars are kind of like they're constantly giving him that energy, and the stars are always going to be around. So I
Does he
haven't.
age slower?
Yeah, he does age. I would say his appearance, he does age somewhat, and I do have a concept of what he looks like as an older All Star, and and that's the thing I thought about that I was wrestling with, but I was like, think about characters like Superman. Like, there's older versions of Superman, and it just would make sense for me to do that, because it's like I want to see what the character would look like aged up. Don't want him to and then on top of that, in terms of like character progression too, like
Yeah.
the different stories that I could tell with that, like an aged All-Star. So yeah.
Okay. I'm getting when you said the like the power up and stuff like that, I was getting Viltrumite vibes, right? Where like the older they get, like the stronger they get. But I guess my question when bringing that up is because he is still human, right? Is he going to slow down? Though he's more, he's stronger, but are certain things going to be affected with his age? Again, being that he's human, is he going to get slower but have more strength, or is he going to have more techniques but less power? Like, how would that play out? Is that if that's something that you've?
I don't really know if that'll. I don't really know if. Well, I should know. In terms of him getting older and him losing or anything deteriorating, I don't really think so.
Okay.
You know, there will come a time where maybe he wants to give up his powers or hang it up. That's a whole nother can of worms. But in terms of him actually, I don't. No, I don't think there's anything that would make him slow down. The only thing that I can really think of in terms of like I guess dampering him would be like a power that's opposite of light, which is the darkness or some sort of dark matter energy.
Okay.
And I know that he's also susceptible to magic as well because he's human, but he's still durable. But like it's like it hurts him, but he's not like compared to a regular human would be more susceptible to magic than him.
Okay. So bringing up durability then, what is like the highest level that of damage he can sustain currently?
I would say someone either just as strong or stronger than him can definitely hurt him. As long as he could fly up to space and kind of heal up if he needed to. I kind of look a lot. I look to characters like Superman in terms of like durability as well, because it's like if Superman fights someone who's just as stronger or just as strong, he can still be hurt. He can be knocked out. Like different things like that. He's not completely invincible, but
Right.
that's kind of like the whole gist of his strength. But he can have those periods of like maybe like a supernova madness where like if he gets really upset, like, or if he's like he gets to that place, then he just turns up, kind of like Captain Marvel's binary situation.
Okay.
But, or like a Super Saiyan mode or something like that, where he just like the aura just like blows up around him. But
okay,
kind of.
And you already brought up speed, right? Comparable to a shooting star, what have you. You got durability. Okay. I know a character I want him to fight, but I use a randomizer wheel so that I could really just like out there.
Okay.
But anyway, nope, I'm not gonna go there. There's a character that came to mind just now with dark matter and stuff like that, and I'm just like, ooh, but like I feel like strength wise, All-Star still got this guy and speed, but neither here nor there. No, I think that covers it though. I think that covers it. Is there anything else about the character that you want the people to know about?
Well, there was a few more things in terms of like how the crystal works. It's actually and his leg too. His leg. He's amputee. So the crystal is actually connected to his nervous system, and the way that it brings his leg back is sort of like a Dr. Manhattan situation, where it's like atom by atom, and the elements that the crystal constantly has flowing through him kind of brings his leg back.
I peeped that in the animation when it kind of went over everything. Okay.
Yeah. So that's kind of like how his leg comes back. And, I would say he also has a level of regenerative abilities as well. But, if he's beat like really, really bad, it's like he can still be hurt and still bleed, but it would just like take time depending on who he's fighting, how fast he regenerates.
Okay, got a whole healing factor. So how quick is it? Like, is it like a Wolverine Deadpool level, or like how Deathstroke's kind of is rumored to be, where he's got somewhat of a healing factor, but not something that's like an instantaneous thing.
Sorry, I think there's somebody flying through the bike. But I would say that his healing factor is along the lines of like I think it would have to be like like kind of like Deathstrokes in a way.
Okay.
Like he would slowly heal over time, but it's like it's faster than the average human in terms of. But if he's in space, then it could be like on Wolverine like level. You know,
Gotcha, because he's
space,
closer to the stars.
to the stars, exactly. So that's
Okay.
how his regen would kind of work. But
and you said, okay, so the crystals connect to his nervous system, and then there was something else I wanted to ask. So there's more than one of these, because you said crystals earlier. So I'm like, wait a second. So she's made more.
As of now, the way that she has her own crystal, and crystals, this armor that's covered in those crystals, because she can actually make more, but she only found one person that's
worthy.
She felt worthy to have the crystal, but in the future there could potentially be other people that get these crystals. Yeah.
Okay.
People that take up the mantle of Allstar. That was actually this one idea where I had maybe I did like a what if story where instead of his son dying, he dies and his son becomes Allstar.
Okay.
Like because his son is literally nicknamed Allstar. So like, what if he was a kid Allstar or something like that? So.
In question, because you did bring up, you did say multiverse earlier. So is that a real possibility out there that there's alternative versions of these events like happening?
That most definitely.
This is spoiler territory. I'm sorry.
It's fine. It's fine. I mean, I think talking about these things are cool because it's like once people get an idea of it in their heads, but it's like it might exceed expectations once they actually see it. It's like with Marvel, like they always put out the movies that they have, and then when you actually see freaking Andrew Garfield and Toby and this, you actually see it. It's like, oh my god! But it's like you already kind of knew a little bit, But yeah. So that's kind of the whole thing with the multiverse situation. Like it's there are worlds out there that maybe a universe where his son just doesn't die, and it's just he and his family are just peacefully living, and he's just normal, so many different possibilities with that.
Okay. I like this, dude. I like this because that, like I said in the beginning, like that's very layered, right? And it's like just as he gets or potentially gets past the stuff that he's dealing with on Earth, there's a whole nother set of trouble brewing that he's unaware of, waiting for him just outside of reach.
Exactly. I like there's also this thing where it's like so Glady the Lightkeeper, she's the living manifestation of light, but there's also a being that's the living manifestation of darkness in the Radical Comics universe. And so this being is also going to be it's not necessarily a being of evil, but because it's darkness, it influences other beings that are kind of either an attitude or power wise darkness. And so it's like you have people like Amalgus, like he would be a being of darkness simply because of what he represents, who he is. And so Dark Star, like they all have this connection, kind of like with the Hulk. I think with the Hulk it was like I can't remember what it was called, but the Green Door or something like that, where they are the one below all and then the one above all, like they all have like a connection. And that's more or less what it is, but All-Star kind of has the connection to the light side. And so these other villains, like even though they have their own things going on, it's kind of like that dark entity is like the devil character that's like whispering in their ear, but like on a subconscious level, like they don't know. But because of there's this whole thing that I have with they actually call it the scales of fate, where it's like the light and the dark, and the scales are actually tipped in favor to the dark So Gletty actually, and this is another reason why she chose Allstar, because the scales are actually tipped to the dark, and when she chooses Allstar, he actually is going to be that thing to balance the scales and or tip it totally completely to the light. So that's why he's, chosen. But it's like it's this whole thing where it's like he he represents this this was resilience and this
Mm-hmm.
hopefulness that even in the darkest situations, in the darkest of times, you can still inspire and still be hopeful, and there's still light on at the end of the tunnel. So it's like in terms of like his situation, and then in terms of who the character is, like he's like the light in the darkness, and him helping other people that are going through different situations like that. It can be a regular person that's going through something dark, him just being there for them, or just him just being that, that presence, that friend. Like he's that light in the dark. Or when dealing with criminals, and it's nothing but criminals, and he's just there, he's that light in the dark. So it's kind of like that's his whole situation with Allstar.
Bro, I like this. I like this, dude. I'll tell you what. Jeez, no, I think I have another one. So I guess you essentially mentioned like this whole thing with like duality, right? So is there like an opposite then to, and forgive me, the one that created the crystal, you said Gletty? Is there an opposite to her then? Again, since you kind of touched on this duality thing, is there like a version of her that's
there isn't necessarily a version of her, but like I was saying, there's this creature that's the living manifestation.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So he has a whole look, and it's like once the creator of the universe birthed, the universe in the light, in the darkness. Once he created the light, there's shadows, and those shadows became sentient throughout the universe, and so it is a literal like manifestation of the darkness, and so yeah, and so its whole thing is to tip the scales, and when you tip the scales, that's when you have beings like Amalgus, or different villains that do different things, and so it's yeah.
It's just clicking then. Okay. So not necessarily a single being, but just the manifestation of darkness self influences other entities in the universe to be an avatar of darkness.
It's one and the same. It is a being. Okay. Yeah, it is a being, but it also influences people.
Okay. Okay. I'm caught up.
Yeah. So I'm actually gonna re-release because the book is actually a graphic novel, but I'm actually gonna re-release it and do smaller issues, but I'm gonna include some stuff in there so that people can get the gist. But just I think pages of the book just to show it off a little bit.
Man, he ain't playing.
But yeah, and that's a whole nother thing too. It's like, I worked on this book for 3 years, and I didn't know the first thing about drawing panels or anything. I just hopped into it just for the passion, and I've always been I've been drawing superhero characters my entire life, but I've never like known how to play around with the panels. But the first few pages that I drew are not even in this book. Like it took trial and error for me to figure out like what I wanted to do, and in terms of like the artistic direction as well as the story. And between those 3 years, I can even see my art style like progress. Like it was so hard for me to draw the faces of the characters and keep that consistency. Like once I had gotten to that place where I was really good at it, I had to go back and redraw the faces and do all this other stuff. And I was struggling with drawing backgrounds. I didn't even know how to draw backgrounds, but I learned how to do it during the course of making the book. Different things like that not a lot of people, I feel like not a lot of people really think about. It's kind of like, oh, the art's there, but you don't really know, the process or
behind the scenes
detail. Yeah, exactly.
I gotta say kudos to you, because I draw, but I didn't give myself the opportunity to try it. Right. I made excuses. It was just like, all right, hey, I'm gonna write and I'll design the characters, but I'm gonna outsource this so that it could get done. So
Right.
kudos to you for saying like, no, I'm going to do this, and you're going to like it. So no, man, great job with that though.
I appreciate it, man. It's
Um,
been a long journey too. And, you know,
yeah.
I had a failed Kickstarter and it did, but I kept going, you know, and I was like, I'm gonna figure out how to get this book out there.
Good. Use that. It's a stepping stone. It's a stepping stone. You
Yeah.
won't get there. That's nothing. Because I've seen you've been the interviews. I seen the news station had you on. They're like, come on.
So it's
We
all
ain't
a
had that.
process.
You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to get to that point. I'm trying to get to the point where the local community sees what it is we're trying to accomplish, man. So like folks see you out here, bro. So keep it up.
I
Keep
appreciate it, man.
Yeah. Let everybody know then where they can find you. I mean, obviously we know, but yeah, let all the rest of the folks know
Right.
where all they can find you and stuff.
So if you want to type in, like, there's different distributors that actually make the book, but if you type in the camera's in reverse, but it's actually Allstar Book 1 Protect and Serve. If you type in that, take you to Amazon, where you can get the book. Lulu Printing is where you can get the physical book as well as the digital book, and that's like $35 on Lulu. The digital book is $25, but since it's a graphic novel, it's 35. But yeah, so there's different distributors, Walmart. But if you type in the entire title, you'll find the book.
Okay. And your Instagram?
And my Instagram is also in the link in my bio. Thank you. It's also in the link in my bio on Instagram, so you can go directly to it. Due to the subject matter, you know, the story, you have to put in your birthday in order to get to the book. But once you get past that, you'll see it. You're able to purchase it that way. But yeah.
What's your Instagram name for the people?
My Instagram name is Ronnie Creates, RONNY Creates, RONNY Creates. Some people put RONNIE, but yeah.
Fair enough. Dude,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you. I look forward to seeing what you do with this character, man, because again, it's very layered from just even the ground level point that he's going to be at, and then to introduce all the aspects or how deep it really goes with where the crystal came from, Amalgus, all these various avatars of darkness. Like, I love how it branches out. I love the origin point that really dives into his character and what he's going to do when it really, spreads out to the adventure that it's going to be. Dude.
Right. And then on top of that too, like, he's gonna be a character within the community, helping the community, but branching out to these other, different things that's going on in the world and outside of the world. But he's gonna try to balance all of it, trying to help everybody, not just people of color, but everybody. But he wants to start where he can, and dealing with whether it's corrupt police officers or just criminals or gang violence or whatever. He's gonna deal with those situations, and also deal with the superpowered threats, the aliens. I don't want him to be that superhero that's like he's too he.
Uh-oh. It froze. Oh, wait. Say it again. It froze.
We good?
Yeah, we're good. I hear you now. There we go.
What'd you hear?
All right. So basically taking like what he's done like on the ground level, but not just helping just his community, but also taking that and trying to help everybody out. Yeah, that's what I got up to.
Yeah. So I was saying, like, he's gonna try to be that for everybody, and he's gonna, start where he's at and expand outward, and then whether it's dealing with regular your average day criminals and supervillains and then aliens and then all of this stuff. But he's not gonna be too good to. He's not gonna be that superhero that's like, oh, I'm always gone. He's gonna try to keep
try to
that
be
balance.
everywhere at once.
But and then there's also other superheroes as well that are going to be within the universe that I did some posts as well. A werewolf ninja, I have a speedster. Those characters,
tachyon particles and stuff like that. Yeah.
So it's not just going to be All-Star in the universe running around. So he's going to have some help. He's going to have some other heroes that are going to be there to pick up some of that slack to against evil. So it's like it's gonna be very exciting once I introduce those characters into the mix of the Radical Comics universe. So
This is gonna be in volume 2.
it's possible. I mean, it's possible. You know, I actually in book 2, I did get pretty far. I'm halfway through book 2.
Okay. There's your live update, ladies and gentlemen.
Yep.
Halfway done.
Halfway done.
Okay.
But
man, thank you for coming on. Of course, anybody that's listening, we're Midnight Comics. You guys can check us out at midnightcomics.org, Midnight X Comics everywhere but Facebook and YouTube, where it's just Midnight Comics. And we hope you enjoyed another episode of Indie Breakdown. I don't know who this guy is going to be up against yet, but when we get ready for that Indie versus, that's going to be a tough fight, especially if that person ain't got no dark matter ability, because that's what in Magic, it's going to be tough. So I'm looking forward to who we get randomly for that one. So
would it be cool? Would it be cool if I did like some art or like I mean,
when that comes around,
whenever that fight comes around. Okay. Yeah. So
yeah, absolutely. I'll keep you posted on that one for sure.
All right, I'm definitely excited for that. But
man, thank y'all for tuning in to another episode of Indie Versus. Ronnie, thank you for being on. And
thank you for having me
on that. What did I say? On Versus. I said the Versus. Okay. Thank you for tuning in or joining us for this Indie Breakdown, man. And everybody, let's listen and remember, until next time, midnight is coming. And we'll see y'all later.